I married the woman of my dreams, the perfect wife, until her midnight vanishings led me to discover a curse that forced me to choose between saving her soul or losing myself forever. I met my wife a long time ago, and back then I thought our life was perfect. Honestly, it felt perfect until the day I discovered something horrible. I was 18 years old at the time, and for reasons I can't fully explain, I had this deep desire to get married young. I didn't just want a relationship. I wanted a wife, a partner, a family. I imagined a life with at least 2 children, and I wanted a woman who was loving, caring, and motherly. Someone who would love our kids just as much as she loved me. So, I used to go out a lot. Bars, mostly. I'd sit at the counter or stand by the dance floor, scanning the crowd for someone who might fit the picture I had in my head. One night, I went to a place called Craig's Bar and Restaurant. It wasn't a flashy nightclub, it was small, cozy, the kind of place where you could have a drink in peace without the music drowning out your thoughts. Some people danced, but most were scattered in corners talking quietly. That's when I saw her. She was the most beautiful woman I had ever laid eyes on. She had long hair, deep red, like autumn leaves, and her face, her figure, everything about her just stunned me. My stomach flipped, and suddenly my mouth went dry. I got nervous. I realized I had to talk to her. I told myself to stop being ridiculous and just go. So I walked up to her and blurted out, "Hey, what's up?" as casually as I could manage. She paused for a few seconds before smiling slightly and answering, "Nothing much. Just vibing." Right away, I could feel something, that spark, that pull. I had no idea if it was mutual, but it gave me enough courage to say, "Want to grab a drink with me?" It took a lot to get those words out, but I'm glad I did. She smiled and said, "Sure." We went over to the bar counter. I ordered a beer, and she got a cider. After that, we found a table and sat down. We just talked about life, about random things. Hours slipped by like minutes. I couldn't believe how easily the conversation flowed or how much I liked her already. By the end of the night, I felt something stronger than just attraction. I felt like I was already falling. Before I left, I asked if I could have her number. Instead of giving it to me, she surprised me by saying, "Why don't you spend the night at my place?" It wasn't suggestive. Nothing about it felt rushed or inappropriate. It just felt natural. I said yes. We didn't do anything sexual that night. We just talked. We lay in bed, side by side, and the conversation we'd started at the bar didn't end until our words trailed off into sleep. Her name was Roseanne. That was when I finally got a clear look at her eyes. They were green, not just green but this piercing, almost glowing green. They reminded me of snake eyes, though in a beautiful way, not a scary one. The next morning, I woke up groggy and disoriented. My head felt thick and my mouth was bone dry. Then, out of nowhere, I heard her voice. "Hey, you're up," she said brightly, nearly making me jump out of my skin. I'd forgotten where I was for a second. "You scared me," I muttered, my voice scratchy. "Did you sleep well?" she asked, all cheerful. Before I could even answer, she disappeared into the kitchen. 15 minutes later, she came back with a tray. "Breakfast in bed." "Oh, nice. Thank you so much," I said, grinning like a little kid. "I love cooking," she told me shyly. "And I thought you deserved a homemade breakfast." That entire day, we just stayed in bed. Talking, laughing, dozing off, waking up again to talk more. I ended up spending a second night there. After that, when I finally went home, I couldn't stop thinking about her. I called her the very next day. And the day after that. In fact, I called her every single day. Our phone conversations would stretch for hours. We went on dates every other weekend. The more time I spent with her, the more convinced I became that she was the one. Roseanne was everything I'd been searching for. Perfect, I told myself. I wanted her to be my wife and my soulmate for the rest of my life. I truly believed I was perfect for her too. Maybe it seemed sudden. Maybe it was crazy. But I couldn't help how I felt. I was falling in love fast and hard. A year went by, and honestly, it was awesome. Life with Roseanne was everything I had imagined when I first dreamed of marriage. We laughed, we talked endlessly, we cooked together, and we built the kind of quiet, content rhythm that I had always wanted. So when I finally proposed, it didn't feel rushed, it felt right. She said yes, without a hint of hesitation. We had a small, modest wedding. Just a handful of close friends and family. Nothing over the top, nothing extravagant, simple but meaningful. It went really well. The ceremony was smooth, and everyone seemed happy for us. For me, it was perfect. I remember standing there thinking this is the happiest day of my life. But there was one thing, just one strange thing. At some point during the wedding, Roseanne disappeared. Not for 5 minutes to freshen up, not for a quick breather, she was gone for hours. No one knew where she went. I tried to play it cool at first, assuming maybe she was overwhelmed or needed some space. But then her dad approached me. He had this tired, knowing look in his eyes when he asked, "Where is Roseanne?" She always disappears at the worst moments. Always? That word stuck with me longer than I expected. But before I could even begin to wonder what he meant, Roseanne came back, smiling, radiant, as if nothing had happened at all. I didn't want to ruin the mood, so I let it slide. Maybe it wasn't a big deal. There was one other odd thing, though. Out of the corner of my eye, I swear I saw her pick up a frog and slip it into her pocket. I blinked a couple of times, wondering if I imagined it. What is she going to do with that? I thought. But I shrugged it off. We'd both been drinking pretty heavily, and maybe she just wanted to prank me or something. The rest of the night is a blur anyway. I don't even remember much after that. All I know is I went to bed thinking I had married the perfect woman. About a month later, we were sitting at a restaurant, eating dinner. I'd been thinking about kids for a while, 6 months at least, and tonight felt like the right time to bring it up. Between the warm candlelight and the calm buzz of the room, I just asked her straight out, "How do you feel about having kids?" Her answer stopped me cold. "I don't like kids. They're loud and they smell," she said flatly. I laughed a little, thinking she was joking. "Have you thought about us having kids?" "I'd love to have at least one," I told her, my excitement bubbling out before I could check myself. She reached across the table and touched my hand gently. "No, my darling. I don't think that's such a good idea," she said softly. I just stared at her, dumbfounded. "What do you mean?" Her eyes dropped from mine, and her smile faded just a little. She told me she couldn't be around kids, didn't explain why, just that she couldn't, but that I deserved to have them and someday maybe she'd be ready. I didn't know what to say. The woman I married didn't want kids with me. Why? That question dug into the back of my mind and stayed there. We left the conversation hanging. I thought about it for weeks afterward, but convinced myself that she'd tell me when she was ready. I told myself to be patient. Love is patience, right? Life went on as normal. The following weekend, she woke me up with breakfast, just like she always did. "Good morning, my handsome prince," she beamed, setting a plate of eggs, bacon, and beans in front of me. "That was really kind of you, my dear," I told her, grinning wide. These small things, these warm, thoughtful gestures, made everything else easier to forget. Every weekend she'd make breakfast, and every time it made me feel loved in the simplest, purest way. But then the following week, she disappeared again. It was Saturday. We had planned a quiet date night at home, just the two of us on the couch watching a movie. Out of nowhere, halfway through the film, she stood up and left, quickly, without a word. Just grabbed her coat, and was out the door. No explanation, no be right back, nothing. She didn't come back for 3 hours. It was almost midnight when I heard the front door open. I was still sitting on the couch, staring at the screen but not really watching anymore. My mind had been spiraling for hours. Then her voice floated from behind me. "Babe, wanna go upstairs?" I jumped so hard I smacked my head on the lamp hanging above me. "Whoa. Where did you go?" I asked sharply, my irritation bleeding through more than I intended. "Don't worry about it, my darling," she said calmly, like nothing was strange about disappearing for hours on a Saturday night. I didn't go upstairs with her that night. I stayed on the couch. My frustration was too heavy to just brush away. I lay there all night, not really sleeping, just thinking, reconsidering everything. I kept debating with myself, should I stay or should I leave? Something about all of this wasn't sitting right with me anymore. Her disappearing, her vague answers, her dismissive calmness every time I asked where she'd been. It didn't feel like a quirk anymore. It felt like a red flag. A big one. I even had thoughts about her cheating on me. I didn't want to admit it, but it flashed across my mind more than once. Still, I reminded myself I married her. I trusted her. It was just a passing thought. At least, that's what I told myself over and over as I stared at the dark ceiling that night. The next week, it happened again. We had plans for dinner, not just any dinner. I'd made reservations at one of the nicest restaurants in town. A real high-end place, the kind of spot you don't just walk into, the kind of spot where you have to save up and plan ahead. I'd been looking forward to it for weeks, and I was proud that I could finally afford something that's special for the two of us. We were just about to leave. I had my coat on, keys in hand, practically buzzing with excitement. That's when Rosen looked at me and said, "I need to use the bathroom. Go start the car." "Sure," I said, and headed outside. I sat in the driver's seat, engine running, and waited. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Then 15. I sat there staring at the clock on the dashboard, drumming my fingers on the steering wheel. What is she doing? How long does it take to use the bathroom? Another 15 minutes ticked by, and my patience wore thin. Something wasn't right. My gut told me to go check on her. So I shut off the car, locked the door, and headed back inside. I walked upstairs, thinking maybe she was in the bedroom putting on more makeup, fixing her hair, or redoing her outfit. Roseanne always liked looking her best on nights out. But when I opened the bedroom door, I froze. The room was empty. The only thing I saw were her clothes, the dress she had picked out for the night, crumpled in a pile on the floor. Why are these on the floor? I thought, confusion creeping into my chest. None of this made sense. This wasn't just running late. This was something else. I searched the whole house, living room, bathroom, even the backyard. Nothing. Nowhere. It was like she had vanished into thin air. Then, as I stood in the kitchen, I heard something, a faint, strange sound. Hisses. It was coming from under me. The basement. There was no reason for her to be in the basement. It was empty, unfinished, and cold. We barely even used it, but something about that sound pulled me toward the door. I flicked on the basement light, dim, flickering, and made my way down the steps. As I descended, the air changed. It was warm, humid, wet almost, and it stank, a foul, rotting smell that hadn't been there before. I felt a bead of sweat form at my temple. Then I heard it again. Movement. Behind me. I spun around and flipped on the flashlight I kept on my keychain. The beam cut through the darkness, and that's when I saw her. A figure. Twisted, impossible. Half woman, half snake. Glimmering scales, elongated limbs, glowing green eyes that cut through me like knives. It hissed at me. No, she hissed at me. My knees almost gave out from under me. My mouth fell open, but no words came out at first. My mind struggled to catch up to what my eyes were seeing. What the hell? I finally blurted, stumbling backward. The creature flinched, and then in a voice I recognized, a voice distorted but still hers, she spoke. "Don't look at me," she rasped. I could barely breathe. "How could you hide this from me?" I demanded, anger cutting through the shock. "I thought you would leave me if you knew," Rosen said, her snake-like form coiling slightly as her voice wavered. "Is there a way out of this? Is this a curse?" My head spun with questions. I needed to know how. I needed to know why. She slowly returned to her human form, right there in front of me. Her scales faded. Her limbs shrank. Her soft, familiar skin and deep red hair returned. When she looked at me now, her eyes were filled with tears, those same green eyes I had fallen in love with. "It's a curse that can't be lifted," she whispered. "I can't be saved. Please kill me. End this madness." I stood there, heart pounding, mind racing. I didn't answer her right away. Instead, I sat down on the cold basement steps, and for hours, we talked it through. She told me everything. Every time she turned into that snake-like creature, she got an unbearable hunger, not for food, not for animals, but for human souls. And not just any souls. She said she preferred younger people. Children. Their souls were purer, more vibrant. She said she tried to fight it, but the urge clawed at her every time the transformation happened. I didn't know what to think. My stomach twisted into knots. I trusted this woman. I loved this woman. This was the woman who made me breakfast on Sundays, who kissed me on the forehead when I came home from work, who held my hand under the table at restaurants. But now this? That night, I didn't sleep. I lay on the couch, eyes wide open, haunted by images. Roseanne stealing children in the dark. Roseanne devouring their souls while wearing that twisted half-snake form. My dreams, or maybe my fears, painted vivid, terrifying pictures I couldn't shake. And yet, you might be thinking, why would he even consider helping her? I know how it sounds. Trust me, I know. It's insane. It's dangerous. But here's the thing. She was perfect. To me, she was perfect. Our life together, minus the secret, was everything I wanted. She kept the house warm. She made my life easier. Coming home to her felt like peace. Even now, sitting there, knowing what I knew, I couldn't bring myself to just make a decision right then. I needed time. I needed to think it through. I needed to figure out, was there really no way out? Was this curse truly unbreakable? Could I live with this secret? Could we live with it? I didn't have an answer that night. I only knew one thing. My life wasn't as perfect as I thought it was. And now everything had changed. A few days later, Roseanne and I finally sat down to talk about it. Really talk about it. No running away from it this time. We sat across from each other at the kitchen table, the afternoon sunlight slanting through the blinds, and she told me everything. Her voice was steady, but I could see her hands trembling slightly as she spoke. She told me about her parents. How, when they were young before she was born, they'd been homeless, desperate and struggling just to survive. They were living on the streets, doing whatever they could to scrape by. That's when they saw it, a flyer tacked to an old lamppost. Faded, handwritten, almost cryptic. It was an advertisement for a shaman. Someone who promised to give people exactly what they wanted. Money, stability, a chance to rebuild their lives. Her parents were skeptical at first, but when you've got nothing, you start to take chances you wouldn't normally take. So they went to see the shaman. He offered them a deal. He promised them wealth, a home, everything they ever dreamed of, in exchange for their first 10,000 euros. It had to be their first 10,000, no exceptions. They agreed. And it worked. They got everything they wanted. A home, steady jobs, a bank account, a chance to start over. But in their excitement, in the whirlwind of getting their lives back, they forgot. They forgot the deal. They forgot to return to the shaman and pay him that first 10,000 euros. And the shaman, he never told them what would happen if they broke the deal. Roseanne's voice got quieter as she told me what happened next. She said that when she was born, everything seemed normal. She was a healthy baby. No signs of anything wrong. But by the time she turned 5, that's when it started. The transformations. The snake-like form creeping in when no one expected it. Her parents panicked. They didn't know what to do. Doctors couldn't explain it. Priests couldn't fix it. That's when they remembered the deal. The shaman. They went back to him. They begged him to undo it. But it was too late. He told them flatly that they had broken their end of the bargain, and this curse, her curse, was the price. There was no going back. When she finished telling me this, I just sat there staring at her. My chest was tight. My throat dry. I felt something rising up inside me that I didn't expect. Not fear. Not disgust. Anger. Not at her. At her parents. At that shaman. At this whole twisted situation. She didn't ask for this. She didn't deserve this. If anything, it made me want to help her even more. I wasn't about to let her pay for something she didn't do. Her parents made a mistake, and she was the one who got cursed for it? No. I couldn't accept that. 5 days later, it was a cold, gray morning. I remember it so clearly. I had taken the day off work because I hadn't been able to sleep since that conversation. My mind just wouldn't stop racing. That's when I saw it. As I walked down the street, on a telephone pole just a few blocks from our house, there was a poster. Shaman. Spiritual readings. Help with life's troubles. It stopped me dead in my tracks. Was it the same one? Could it be? No, it couldn't be the same man after all these years, right? But I couldn't ignore it. I had to know. My heart started pounding as I tore the flyer down and stuffed it in my coat pocket. Later that day, after double-checking the address on the poster, I made my way there. It wasn't easy to find. The path led me out of town, through winding country roads, into a dense patch of woods I didn't even know existed. No signs. No landmarks. Just trees and dirt and an uneasy quiet. My phone had no signal out there. But I kept going. I don't know how, maybe luck, maybe instinct, but eventually I found it. A small, crooked cottage tucked deep in the trees. Moss clung to the roof. The windows were clouded and cracked. The wooden door looked like it had been standing for 100 years. I took a deep breath and knocked. It took a few seconds, but then the door creaked open. Slowly. A sliver of darkness appeared, and then he stepped into view. The man who stood before me looked ancient. His back was bent slightly, his long white hair thinning and tangled. His face was a deep map of wrinkles, skin like parchment, eyes milky but sharp all the same. He had this presence, something heavy and old that pressed into your chest and made it hard to breathe. He didn't say anything at first. He just stared at me. And in that moment, I had no doubt. It was him. The same shaman. Decades later, somehow impossibly still alive. I swallowed hard and tried to keep my voice steady. "I need your help," I said. He didn't blink, didn't smile, but slowly, Wordlessly, he stepped aside and opened the door wider, motioning for me to come in. I crossed the threshold, and as the door creaked shut behind me, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had just stepped into something far, far bigger than I understood. I stood there in his cottage, the air thick with incense and old dust, and listened as he quietly confirmed everything Roseanne had told me. Word for word, the same story. Her parents, the deal, the broken promise, the curse. Oddly, he wasn't angry. His voice was steady, gentle even, as though this was just the way things were and had always been. There was no malice in him, no gloating, just calm inevitability. That somehow gave me a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, if he wasn't vengeful about it anymore, there could be a way out. He must have seen that hope in my face because he paused, then told me he would check his old texts. There might be something, he said simply, and then turned and disappeared into the back room. I waited, and waited. The minutes dragged. The air in that cottage felt heavy, like it pressed down on my shoulders. I sat on an old wooden stool by the door, hands clenched together, staring at the worn dirt floor and the curling edges of yellowed books stacked on the shelves. 30 minutes passed before he returned. His footsteps were slow and deliberate as he came back into the room, an ancient leather-bound book cradled in his arms like something fragile. I could see it on his face before he even spoke. Whatever he'd found, it wasn't good. He sat down across from me and looked directly into my eyes. His voice stayed soft, but there was a finality to it that hit me like a punch to the chest. There is no cure, no reversal. He explained that it was a binding curse, forged in agreement. Both her parents and he had sealed it, willingly or not, and once done, her fate had been set in stone. Unchangeable, irrevocable. I felt like the floor dropped out from under me. All that hope I'd carried out there, gone. I sat there motionless, staring at nothing, my mind just blank. I don't know how long I stayed like that before I finally stood up. I nodded, thanked him numbly, and turned to leave. But just as I reached the door, he spoke again, his voice barely a whisper. A person's love is the only thing capable of removing something this horrifying. I didn't ask him to explain. I didn't say anything. I just left. The walk home was a blur. The sky was gray, the wind sharp against my face, but I didn't feel any of it. My legs carried me forward while my thoughts spiraled further and further downward. His words echoed in my mind, circling over and over, but they made no sense. What did he mean? Love? How could love undo something that ancient, that cruel? By the time I got to our house, my body felt numb. I climbed the front steps and unlocked the door. The house was silent. Too silent. Roseanne. I called out. Nothing. No answer. No movement. A cold dread settled in my stomach as I walked toward the stairs. Each step felt heavier than the last. When I reached our bedroom and pushed open the door, the breath left my body. She was there, lying still on the bed. Blood everywhere. Thick, dark patches soaked into the sheets. Her skin was pale, her eyes closed gently, as if she were just sleeping. But I knew she wasn't sleeping. I dropped to my knees beside her, my whole body shaking. My hands hovered uselessly over her. I didn't even know what to touch or where to start. I couldn't breathe. My throat locked up, and the only thing that came out were broken, raw sobs that tore from deep inside me. I cried harder than I ever thought possible. Harder than I knew a person could cry. My eyes blurred with tears as I noticed the piece of paper sitting next to her. A note. With shaking fingers, I picked it up. Her handwriting was careful and soft, like always. Each word carved deeper into me as I read. My love, you have been the most wonderful thing in my life. You gave me happiness I never thought I'd have, and I can never thank you enough for loving me even when I couldn't love myself. I'm sorry for what I've done, but I can't keep living like this, knowing I could hurt someone innocent. I couldn't risk it anymore. Please forgive me. I'll wait for you in the next life. We'll get married there, I promise. I'll love you forever. Yours always, Roseanne. By the time I finished, the paper was crumpled and wet in my hands. My chest felt hollow and caved in. I let out a strangled cry and buried my face in the sheets next to her. My body convulsed with each sob as memory after memory flashed through my mind. The way she laughed when we danced in the kitchen late at night. The quiet walks we took under the stars. The way her hand fit perfectly into mine on our wedding day. All the nights we stayed up too late, dreaming about moving away and starting fresh somewhere far, far from here. Gone. All of it. Gone in one breath, One cut, one note. I lost everything that night. I lost her. The brightest light in this dark, brutal world. It's been months now. Maybe longer. Time blurs when grief is the only thing that wakes up with you every day. Her clothes still hang in our closet. Her favorite book still sits on her nightstand. I can't bring myself to pack anything away. I still sleep on my side of the bed. I still set her place at the table sometimes without thinking. I can't let go. I don't know if I'll ever be able to. Because when you lose a love that deep, that true, it doesn't just disappear. It lingers. It stays. Just like she promised. Waiting for me in the next life.